Hey, everybody. First off, I'd like to say congratulations to you for being picked by your leadership to take part in this workshop. It shows that they have faith in you and they believe that your time is valuable, that you can use it to learn something, stay awake, and hopefully bring something back to your teammates. Second, thank you for taking the time to watch this module. We're going to talk about something that I think is really valuable, especially when it comes to social media strategy and this venue, getting leadership buy-in. A little about me, I'm currently serving as the Public Affairs Superintendent for the 6th Air Refueling Wing. My name is Senior Master Sergeant Harry Kibbe. You can call me Bubba. This job is what I consider my dream job. It's a great location. Tampa is not too bad. I got a great team, and they have already got a great culture established. There's lots of young, creative 3Ns who are passionate about what we do, so I'm in heaven right now. Most recently, like just a few weeks ago, I served with Enlisted Jesus. I did that for about 3 years, and during that time, we took some pretty bold communication strategies, which requires quite a bit of leader buy-in. And that's why I think that I was matched with this topic. Now, I'm not one to brag, but I'm probably the most humble person you will ever meet. Pause for laugh. Which is why I don't consider myself a complete expert in this field. And to be honest, in our line of work, in mass communications and in public affairs, it's changing so much, and it's all subjective to your location and your team. So anyone who calls themselves an expert in getting leadership buy-in is probably a charlatan. Unless it's one of the other people in this media forum, they're all complete experts. Seeing as how I surely won't have all the answers you guys need, I'm going to do a couple of things for us during this time. I'm going to caveat all of this information with a disclaimer. That is that this is based on my unique experience, and I'll be the first person to tell you that I've been incredibly lucky in my PA career field, or my PA career. I'm also going to invite any and all of you to message me to continue this conversation after our 45 minutes to an hour are done. You can find me on Global or Gmail or Facebook Messenger. My Gmail is harrykibbe@gmail, very creative. And there's not too many Harry Kibbes in the world, so just look me up, find me, and ask me questions. And here's the last thing I'm going to do, and it's probably the best one. I've invited some of the smartest folks that I know to this discussion. Some people that I consider my public affairs friend-tours. I'm going to copyright that. They're my friend-tours. They're my friends. They're mentors, the people that I go to for ideas, that I bounce ideas off of, and that we just try to talk as often as possible because they're awesome folks. First up, in no particular order, by the way, we have a person that you know and you love. He's the social media guru. He's my go-to for almost everything over the past year or so, Jared Denton.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on here. I don't ever feel like a guru or an expert or anything, especially after talking with you, but I really appreciate being here.
You've achieved guru status, my friend. Second, she is the first ever public affairs advisor to the Space Force SEA. She is Antoinette Gibson.
Hi, teammates. I'm excited to be a part of the discussion today.
Next, he's my replacement in the office of the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. A very lucky guy. He's going to get to work with Chief Joanne Bass. His name is Nathan Perry.
Greetings and salutations, and I could never replace you.
Hey, Nathan, you knew that this was an OCP thing, right? Is that?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a slacker. I thought to wear this for this particular occasion.
Nathan's in the middle of a PCS. He's coming from Aviano. I told him that civilian clothes were going to be fine. And then I told him that I would cover him, but then I threw him under the bus. Lastly, look, if you guys don't know Natasha Stannard, you're missing out. I feel sorry for you. Hopefully you will get to know her during this forum. She is the powerhouse enlisted leader at the 2nd Audiovisual Squadron. Natasha, thank you for doing this.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I really like the term friend tours because I'm certainly seeing a lot of familiar faces, and it's making me really happy. Who I go to for advice. So yeah, nice to see all of you guys, and I look forward to the discussion.
Hey, I ran that friend tours term by Chief Wright. I was going to try to give it to him when I was working for him, and he said no, it's too corny. I ran it by my team at the 6th Air Refueling Wing before this discussion, and they said, nah, it's too corny. Don't do it. You'll regret it. But I did it anyway. I'm embracing the corn, the inner corn. So thank you, Natasha, for reinforcing that.
Yeah, I'm all about being cheesy or corny.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I'm going to pitch it to Team 19. I'm telling you that right now. We'll see if Team 18 can take it. Maybe Team 19 will.
Well, you might do yourself more harm than good, and we're going to be talking about that during this time. Before we get into it, guys, I was wondering if you would just let me talk briefly about what I think this discussion should be about, or what it could be about, and that's getting leadership buy-in. What that means to me is it's about trust. It's when your leader knows that you aren't going to lead them astray, and that they're brought in and bought into the idea that your communication strategy plan or the advice that you give them is a worthy course of action. What do you guys think? Is that what we should be talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. The cornerstone of everything, especially in social media, is trust. And especially now, because we're in this kind of age where people have stopped trusting institutions and people representing those institutions and started trusting strangers. So if you can't have trust with your boss, you can't have trust with your audience. So one of the questions that I wrote down for, I think that this is a good one for you, Antoinette, because you're still in the honeymoon phase with Chief Toberman. How do you gain his trust?
I think for me, being in this new seat, it's very important for me to be honest, be respectful, and be open to his needs. I really need to get a pulse of what is important to him, be educated on that, get a good understanding on that, and then develop a plan and just really get after it.
One of the things that the gentleman that works with me in my office, he's been there for, I want to say 58 years. He's the GS. No, I'm kidding. Terry Montrose. He gave me some notes here about gaining their trust, and he says it takes time. Now, a lot of us PCS in and out every couple of years, so we don't really have time. But what it means to me is gaining that trust for your team. And I'm lucky that I'm able to, even though I'm new coming into the unit, I'm able to capitalize on the trust that Terry's already gained. And I asked him how he did that, and he said it takes time, and you got to keep in mind that it takes a lot of time to build the trust, and only a short one mistake to lose it. And I wanted to talk to Natasha about how is the trust between you guys at the second and the commander, and how do you maintain that trust? I know that you guys have, like, every year I'm seeing you guys winning awards. I'm seeing the excellent quality products that you guys are doing. Does excellence play a part in gaining that trust?
Yeah, I would say being passionate about what you do is a huge part that goes into the quality of your work. And if you're passionate, you're obviously going to do everything that you can to gain your commander's trust, to make products that are stellar. A lot of what we do supports big Air Force, like big Air Force projects. So we're not necessarily doing wing level things, which are also very important, but we're working directly for the Pentagon many times. So there's not really much of an option to not have stellar work when that's your customer. Yeah. So with that trust, with the commander, it's also about building trust within our teams and inspiring people to have that passion and that drive, making them excited about the work that they're doing. So it's not just about, like, researching and planning for the commander, but giving that same information to your airmen so that they understand their role in the bigger picture. So that's what we try to do over here, is like help our junior enlisted understand their role and all kind of just come together really as a team in our communication.
I see your guys, the passion in the products, right? And not everyone's going to have a huge team with a Mike McCool going out and then directing these projects, but everyone will be able to build trust if they have that passion. So that's one of the key things that I wanted to talk about is excellence. So if you're trying to get the trust of your commander and you're creating excellent products, putting the time in, putting the work in, then they're going to trust you whenever you say, hey, I want you to think about this next type of bold communication strategy. Nathan, my brother, you're coming from a detachment where you were this very successful station, AFN Aviano. When you guys are trying to build that relationship and build that trust with the Aviano commander who comes in and out, what are some of the things that you did as the leader of the station to let that commander know that you were on the team?
So one of the things is, and this is especially unique for a detachment when you're working like in the AFN, is you don't belong to the wing. So you need to make sure that that you kind of build that relationship with them, understand that, help them understand that you might not be administratively under their control, but you are a part of the team. And it's a little bit easier when you are actually kind of in that chain of command to have to forego that. But for like an AFN station, that's something that you really have to work on, is make sure that we were a part of Wyvern Nation. Like, we are a part of the team. So that's probably step one from like a detachment perspective. And then from there, the other part is selling your team. Natasha brought up the trust, within, your teammates and whatnot. That's a huge thing, is you got to trust yourself, and you got to trust your team to be able to bring forth those bold communication efforts that you want to bring to the table. So trusting and understanding what you bring to the table, and then being able to sell that to the new commander as they come in. So we had 3 commanders in my time, although General Bailey had just gotten there towards the tail end. So that's a relationship that the team is going to have to continue building because it does take time. And some commanders are going to be real quick to buy in, and some might be a little bit slower to the take. But trust yourself, trust your team, and just keep going at it. Maybe your first idea gets shot down, so you try something a little bit less. And then starts building that trust. Like, okay, these people, they know what they're talking about. They're here to take care of me. It's especially true for the radio programming that we have. We're here for you.
Awesome. What that look like on a daily basis, one simple thing that I think you can do if you're the leader of a team working at a wing, is show up at the meetings. Go to the meetings, talk to them, find out what the commander's priorities are, and then bring them back to your team and explain them. And I know that's the least fun part of the job, unless you're meeting with a lot of fine folks like these in this room. But yeah, show up at the meetings, find out what's important to that commander, and then try to tie what you do into that. Antoinette, you have a very unique perspective because you're one of, I believe, 2, maybe now 3 airmen in the Air Force, enlisted airmen, who have done an EWI, education with industry internship. I don't know if that's what we're calling it, but what does gaining the trust look like in the civilian sector?
In the civilian sector, as a military fellow, it's a little bit challenging, right? So you really got to get a good vector on the organization and how they're currently communicating and what that kind of looks like, right? But then it's the same thing. It takes time. They're not really accustomed to what communicating from a government standpoint looks like, what our skill sets look like. And so you kind of have to prove that to them. You have to be consistent in whatever it is that you're trying to implement and whatever you're trying to push. It's almost the same thing though, right? It's going to take time. We have to get after what is important to them. but we have to be educated and understand what is important to them. And unfortunately, that program is only about 10 months long. So it seems like by the time you build that trust, by the time you get in the flow, it's almost time to go. But from a baseline perspective, the principles are the same, right? We just want to be open to their needs, get a good understanding of what they want, and then truly get after that.
What I'm hearing brings me right to my next point, and that's the perspective piece of it. So you can create all of the excellent products that you want. You can show up to every meeting possible, but if you are not taking into consideration that commander's or that leader's perspective, we're a very unique organization in the United States Air Force. Our brothers and sisters in the other services have the same challenges that we do, and we are in PA and communication, we are round pegs trying to fit into square holes a lot of times. We are a very creative, sometimes subjective, sometimes, I don't know if it's left or right brain, but what we're trying to service someone who is brought up with an engineer mindset, who is thinking about checklists and ones and zeros and bombs on target. So Jared Denton, analytics, can data be a player in helping to gain leadership buy-in?
Yes, 100% yes, but not in the way that we've been traditionally taught. So when you look at analytics, we've been taught to say, oh, well, this is how many people we've reached or how many engagements we got. Does that actually get after your boss's intent? No, not normally. So for each thing that you put out, each product you do, or each campaign your team manages, you got to look at that. How does it get after my commander's overall intent or their priorities? You have to define that success up front. And then when the campaign or product is published or out there, you provide them with the metrics that say, hey, this is exactly what you were looking to do. And here's how we met that goal. And here's the data, here's the science, here's the math behind it.
And what does that take? Like, how can someone find out how to interpret that and then feed that back? Is there a magic bullet for talking to an engineer about social media?
The magic bullet comes from realizing there isn't a magic bullet with it. But ultimately what it drives down to is that engineer is not going to be, if they're thinking about it from an analytics standpoint, they're not going to be looking so much at the quantitative data, like how many likes or how many comments or how many shares you got out of a post. They're going to look at the qualitative. So what your teams need to kind of condition themselves to say is, okay, they got 50 comments, but how many of those comments were supportive? How many of those comments got after the actual sentiment that we wanted to achieve with this? So that's how you kind of translate creative speak to engineer speak. You look at what the quality of each post, each campaign has.
One of the things that I found dangerous about working with a principal like Chief Wright was I often found myself wanting to cherry pick the comments that people were putting. And I did that because I cared about them and I didn't want them to be brought down by some of the haters out there. But it's a very dangerous thing in my mind to cherry pick those comments. I think that you earn a lot more trust if you can be balanced with it. If you can own up to, yeah, so we did this post and it's tracking pretty well with these folks. However, this is something I want us to look out for next time. Antoinette, one bit of advice, because I consider myself the old guy in the room. I've been where you are. I've been where Nathan's about to be. One bit of advice, and I know Chief Toberman, and he's just like Chief Wright. He's a ninja with social media. The guy was the first one that I know of to do an Ask Me Anything on Reddit. He will be bold. You might have to slow him down sometime. But one thing that I found very useful was to just shut up sometimes, to give him like, hey, this is what we did, this is what it looked like, and not try to give my opinion about whether it was a good thing or not. And Chief Wright got on me because I would try to inject editorial to that. Do you find that useful with Chief Toberman? What does he look for from you as far as input or feedback from your social media engagements?
No, I think that's good. You're spot on. He is very smart, very tech savvy. He's all over the Ask Me Anything. He's all over Facebook and social, just very, very wise. I think I'm trying to find that balance now. You know, sometimes there may be an opportunity where there is a post that we can put out, and I may try to insert that feedback. And then there's other times where I may take a seat back and just see how it's received, right? Because we have to learn each other in communicating to our audience and being effective in utilizing social, right? So he's very receptive, though, to the feedback that I got. Hey, boss, I think this is working. Let's look at it from this angle, this perspective. And sometimes he's like, you know what? Let's try this. Or no, I think we're okay here. And that's okay, right? Sometimes, you know, we may not be eye to eye on everything, right? But it's a lot of give and take. There's a lot of balance there. But it's very, let me give you some feedback. Let me take some feedback. And I think that works very well for us, especially standing up a new service. There's a lot of things to communicate. We're also trying to learn each other. We're just navigating the newness of it all together. And I think that's very important.
You bring up a very good point, something that Nathan is going to have to figure out pretty quickly. And Nathan and I have a lot of conversations about this, and that's learning your leader's voice, learning their voice. So one of the most important steps to gaining their trust, getting their buy-in for products, is if you can represent them accurately. As we're talking, we're uncovering some things. I actually had a little bit of an outline that this is following, so I'm pretty excited about it. But Nathan, one of the things that I'm going to recommend to you, and I'm going to recommend to every PA coming into a unit, is do some research, dig up anything you can find from your commander, from the principal, and then be with them. Anytime your commander is going to talk at an ALS, anytime your command chief is going to talk at an ALS or a ceremony, try to be there with them while you're trying to capture that voice. Try to send one of your teammates there if you're a teammate that is working the social media plan. Nathan, talk a little bit about that, how important you're finding that single part of what you're coming into working with SimSAF 19, Chief Bass.
Yeah, it's that's definitely the stage where I'm at right now, is trying to learn that voice, because you know, we're two different people, and this is somebody who I haven't worked with before. So I've spent most of yesterday watching videos, kind of going through some Facebook posts when she was the command chief over at the 2nd Air Force. Now her personal page that was pretty wild when the next SimSAF friends you on Facebook. But it's literally, that's my job right now, is just kind of going through and finding what she sounds like. So that way, when I'm working on these speeches and this content for her, it sounds like it's coming from her. When I pitch it to her, it's something that she naturally would do or naturally would say. So that way it's a lot easier to get the buy-in for like, okay, yeah, no, that sounds great, because it already sounds like something they were thinking or something along the lines that they would do naturally. But it does take a lot of work. So my first speech, where I didn't really have much information to go off of, was pretty rough. This next one is still very rough. It's going to take some time to build that, and it's going to take a lot of what you're talking about there, Senior Kibbe, about being with her. Right now I'm in quarantine, so I can't. So now the research is all the virtual stuff. What can I do? Looking at that prior content. So if you are somebody who's going to next duty station, and you have somebody who's there already, reach out to them. reach out to that PA team, reach out to, and that's, something that Senior Kibbe and I have done is have that conversation. Now his principal is SimSAF 18, who's out the door, and I'm having to learn SimSAF 19. But getting those pointers and finding that information out beforehand is really going to help you. So that way, when you get in the seat, you can have that buy-in where you can be like, hey, I want to do this thing, or here's this thing that I've created, and if you can get their voice down earlier, you're going to get the buy-in a lot sooner than, and build that trust and that relationship up much, much quicker.
I'm going to give you guys a little inside here. Just capturing Chief Wright's voice, all you got to do is start a post with teammates. That's all you got to do is say teammates. Hey, teammates. No, I'm kidding. There's a little bit more to it than that. If we have time at the end of this, I'll tell you guys how I met Chief Wright. Some of you have heard that story. Some of you haven't. But one of the things that Nathan talked about on my screen, there he is, that I found very useful was, using some research, but also something that I find helpful is using my friends. And Natasha is a friend. And one of the things that I struggle with is capturing the female voice. And I found that Natasha and I worked together on a small project. She wrote something that very clearly and accurately captured the female perspective. So if you're a guy working for a female, if you're a white person working for a black person, please reach out to your friends. Natasha, how important is it for someone like me to reach out to someone like you when trying to represent someone's voice that isn't anything like my voice?
No, I think that's extremely important. And I think that you have to really know yourself. I mean, clearly you're a man, I'm a woman, so there's that factor.
Thank you.
But just
That's the nicest thing. That's the nicest thing Natasha's ever said to me, by the way. No, I'm kidding.
I've said nicer things.
No, you have. I was joking.
So like for me, I know that I'm sometimes more of a risk taker. So if it's something that's a little bit more sensitive, I will go to somebody else because I know that my first instinct is, yeah, let's do that. When it's not always the right choice right away. I tend to get a little bit excited about things and excited about things that my airmen are excited about. So I'll try to go to somebody who is maybe a little bit more analytical, more cautious, just to get that feedback too. And as you were saying about different demographics, we all see from different lenses, right? So there's certain things in life that you won't go through, that I've gone through, or that Antoinette's gone through, that I will have not gone through. So getting those different perspectives is so important, especially when you're like, for instance, we did a campaign for the Dialogue on Race, supporting the chief. So with that, there was a lot of team discussions going into that, to really kind of help us form our plan for our commander and help her feel confident about it going out. And we didn't sugarcoat the fact that there wouldn't be negative comments. We felt that would happen going into it, but it was about keeping that conversation going, and that's really what we were doing. We were supporting Chief Wright with that, the C staff. So yeah, just having all of us work together on that, I think, was a great example about what you're just asking about.
Collaborate, work with your friends. 2 heads are better than 1, 3 heads are better than 2. And you mentioned that it's something I took away from that is my final point in here, is that you got to realize that it's not about you. It's never about, when I was working with Chief Wright, one of the ways that I gained his trust is I think I showed him that I understood what his priorities were, that I was open to his feedback, and that I realized that this was about the airmen. It's not about me. I wasn't, sometimes I did try to sneak in my own priorities. Like, I've got my own issues and you guys know them pretty well, but inevitably, whenever I would try to come hard, I'll give you my thing. I one time I tried to come hard at other enlisted leaders who came hard at their airmen because of my own philosophy. And Chief Wright corrected me pretty quickly and reminded me that this wasn't about me. I can't fix the way other people lead, but what I can do is to help show his example, show the lighter side, or the bright side of leadership, and try to inspire those leaders through example. So it wasn't about me. I can't emphasize that enough. And it's not always just about your commander. It's sometimes you have to help that commander realize that it's really about your team. It's about Team McDill right here. Guys, I'm going to open it up really quick because I feel like I've been driving this and we've covered every single thing on my list. Is there anything that we're not thinking of as far as getting leadership buy-in? And we have a little bit of time left, so please, somebody help us out.
I was just going to add about talent management. So just understanding the talents of your teammates, because generally as senior NCOs, we're not going to be the ones creating the products. So just knowing your airmen's capabilities, and when you have a project, like having a solid person that you know can deliver and produce something that is going to meet their wants and needs.
Yeah.
And that can be at your squadron or outside of your squadron. Nathan and I actually kind of teamed up to, I helped him work on a graphic for Chief Bass. So that was pretty cool, finding some talent out there that someone that I had confidence in and I knew could help deliver on that. So that was a fun pairing.
I can't tell you guys, Jared, how many messages would you say I've asked, or how many asks have I had of you over the past year and a half?
7,400 no, I don't.
That's the tally.
Track. Yeah,
that's the tally right there.
Same.
All of that ties into that excellence point. The very first step in gaining your commander's trust is creating excellent products. So focus on, and I don't want to make this about our core values. If we had to come up with some PA core values, I would put excellence at the top of the list. But that's exactly right, Natasha. Thank you so much for that. Anybody else? What am I missing?
I would, on top of that, creating excellent products. I think it's important, especially when you're out in the field, to realize that excellence is a moving target. It shouldn't always be it may not always be the cleanest looking video or the most well put together, professional quality video. When we talk about social media, excellence is impact. And if that product is impacting your target audience, then it's excellent because it's getting after what your boss wants. So it may not be something that's a 10-minute cinema quality video or something like that. It could be a 10-second clip that just resonates with people really well. That's
point number 2. That's what that is right there.
First.
It's do your homework, right? We talked a little bit about these guys, knowing their perspective. These guys and these women are coming from data-driven backgrounds. One of the things that we can do to earn their trust and to earn their confidence is to do our homework, to do the research, like Mr. Montrose told me yesterday when we were talking about this. It put the legwork in. There's no easy solution. There's no silver bullet to earning their trust. So do the research, do the homework. Nathan, help us out here, brother.
So you're going to have to be prepared to hear no, and hear no a lot. And so then it's what you do with that no, because it's going to take some time. We're talking about them being, engineers, analytically driven. I'll be honest, a lot of our leaders tend to be risk adverse. And so when you're talking about doing something that's bold, you might not have a Chief Toberman who is willing to be bold, or Chief Wright, which, by the way, Senior Kibbe, I'm disappointed. You went with the friend-ter thing, but then you didn't go with the right way for the pun and the earlier. So just wanted to note that real quick. But when you hear no, understand where they're coming from with that no. And then, as cheesy it is, but you find a way to get to yes. And often that way is do the tasks that are asked of you. Try to meet their intent as Sergeant Denton was talking about. So meet their intent with what they're comfortable with. But then maybe on the side, you're creating something, you're getting that product ready to show them like, hey, this is what it could be. This is what we could do. And if you show them that excellence, then maybe you're breaking down a barrier and they're willing to go that way. And then once that product is successful, then you can start doing more products like that. And you're going to gain that trust, and you're going to be able to build upon that. But be prepared to hear no. Because it will happen, and it'll happen a lot, because people are used to doing things a certain way. And when you're trying to go into new territories, that opens up some risk. And if we have risk adverse people, you're going to have to find ways to ease that for them. And often that's giving them what they need in the moment, while preparing something for the future to show them that, hey, we are capable, we have that talent, and we have this ability to go further with this and meeting your intent and hitting those targets. Yeah.
Speaking of hitting the targets, that ties very well into one of the points that we talked about, is that's getting their perspective. So when they're saying no, maybe you didn't do a good enough job. You're never going to do a 100% effective job of gaining their perspective, but you got to find out why they're saying no, so that you don't keep hearing no, so that you can then figure it out. A lot of the leaders in our business are warfighters, are pilots. So finding their perspective will help you gain their trust. And there's one more nugget that we talked about earlier. And I'm opening it up to any of you guys to talk about how important it is, once again, to just show up, to just be there when the conversations are happening. I'm looking at you, Natasha, because when you guys are working on some of those products, you don't have time to redo those things. So you got to get it right at the beginning, and you can't really do that if you're not showing up.
Yeah. So, just showing up for basic meetings, or
so to get the vision right. So if the triple nickel, I'm thinking about that triple nickel thing for, I think 2 years ago, you guys won just about every award there was to win with that, and you made your commander very happy. You or made several commanders very happy, and you also earned a lot of trust right there.
So I was not around for that, but I will say that
part of your culture.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I know that like our producer directors, they're there for just about every and any meeting having to do with the projects that they're working on. And then they pass along as much information as they can to our airmen, so that they understand like the importance of their job on those shoots. And sometimes when people first get here, because we have such large projects and such advanced equipment, it's a crawl, run, or it's a crawl. I can't talk.
I always mess that one up.
Walk, run. So it's almost like you're learning a whole new skill set. So at times, you're setting up lights, you're like a setup person. So it's a little bit difficult to see. I'm just setting this up. I'm not filming from an airman perspective, but understanding the bigger picture of, bigger picture of what you're supporting as that airman, and that you're going to have the opportunity to grow. That's how we get our teams formed, right? And so just being at the table, for the producers, for the NCOs to be at the table with the commander, understanding her perspective, understanding our customers' perspectives, so that we can then pass that along to the entire team. That's how you get those sort of products.
That's great. Yeah, so what we discussed is following the outline, and we pretty much stuck to it, is in order to capture your leaders' buy-in, in order to get their buy-in, in order to earn their trust, you have to do excellent work. That's not rocket surgery right there. Just do the excellent work. You got to do your homework. You got to put in the research. You got to figure out what it is that they're going to want you to do. Capture the commander's intent. You need to show up, and by showing up, you're going to be able to capture their voice. You're going to be able to find out what the voice is that you're supposed to share. You're going to get to know your audience very well and get the intent. And one more thing that I want to share with you is kind of like something I just learned this week here is when you're giving them that advice, know what other organizations are doing. Just know what everyone else is doing. And if no one is doing this thing that you guys have, sometimes it's great to be first and to do something very innovative. But sometimes there's a reason no one else is doing it. Maybe that reason is COVID. Maybe that reason is some kind of sensitivity. Maybe someone already did it and they saw great success, and you can build upon that success. And maybe someone did it and it was a huge flop. If you can give them that advice and show them that that other people have had success or failure, it's going to add to that credibility. It's going to help them, because what I'm telling you is a lot of these guys and gals are competitors. They're competing for the next command. They're competing for their first command. Sometimes they're competing with themselves to be as excellent as they can be. So giving them that warm fuzzy will help you go a long way toward building that trust. Now, unless that didn't encapsulate it, we've still got a little time. Do you guys want to end the formal portion and give some bonuses?
I would like to just tag on to the part there that we were talking about earlier about showing.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is that listen aspect. I want to stress how important it is that when you're there at those meetings, you're there to listen, because people are going to, show you who they are. Your commanders, your clients, whoever you're working for, they're going to talk about the things that are important to them. And if you're listening and you're given those critical listening skills, that's where you're going to pick up. You're going to be able to read between the lines, and you're going to be able to hear what's happening. If something gets brought up and your commander addresses it a certain way, pick up on how they address that particular issue, because that's what's important to them. That's how they're finding it out. If it's numbers driven or if it's people driven, you're going to hear that in the conversations that they're having with their, if they're talking about a wing commander, about the group commanders. For me, it's going to be SimSAF 19, the way that she's talking with the team 19, the way that she's talking with the other chiefs, the way that she's talking with the CSAF. These are the things I'm going to be listening to, because through those conversations, that's how I'm going to pick up that voice. That's how I'm going to pick up those priorities, is by listening to what's important to her. And so it's very, very important when you're there, when you show up, that you're not showing up to necessarily like what we're talking about earlier with Senior Kibbe. It's not about you. It's about them. So be sure to open your ears and listen to what they have to say, because that's how you're going to be able to put yourself to the side and be able to put your principal first.
Perfect point, man. Thank you. That's absolutely right. Couldn't have said it better myself. Does anybody have any questions that they just want answered? It can be about this topic or it can't be. What do you think our audience wants to know?
I think so one of the things that I've always noticed too is when you're taking care of your boss, you're taking care of their intent and you're driving after that, it's real easy to only focus on the up and out. Like what your boss wants is the primary goal. But there's also a need, especially if you're running a team or if you're running social media or anything like that, there's a need to focus on the down and in. And you've got to inspire your team. If you have a team that's with you, you've got to keep them inspired. You've got to keep them motivated. And as Sergeant Perry was saying, you hear no a lot. If you've got a team, try to be the person who says yes. So if they come to you with these ideas, tell them things like, there's no bad ideas. There's just unrefined ideas. Like, get them to work for you, to be inspired, to show up every day and want to drive hard and produce great stuff. Yeah.
That's a great point. I'm going through a lot of that right now with my team. Got a lot of great ideas, just got to kind of keep them charging in the same direction. I really am, guys. So I envy all of you guys, Antoinette, Nathan, the journey you're about to go on, or that you're currently going on, it's a really wild ride. You're going to gain some perspective that only a few folks get to. Hopefully you'll use that perspective to help bring up more people to have the same level of open-mindedness or perspective about our job. I wanted to lead a team like Natasha's, just complete excellent. They exemplify every aspect of excellence, and that's solely, in my opinion, due to the leadership that she's able to provide. And of course, you guys know how I feel about Jared. I mean, what more can be said?
You can try.
Yeah, Jared really has been a lifesaver for me. What you guys will find out is that you're on your own a lot. And sometimes you're going to be asked to do things that you just don't. I mean, Natasha and I have a team. We have people that we can lean on. You guys are in a very unique situation where you are a senior NCO who is on your tools every day. Not many other jobs out there are where the senior NCO are the ones tweeting and sharing and capturing the voice and doing all that stuff. So you guys are managing yourselves, and you're managing your own time, and you're managing your reputation with your boss. So all of these rules that we went through, excellence, do your homework, show up, capture their voice, and give them courses of action that they can trust, those things are going to lead to your success. Natasha and I are fortunate enough to have teams that we can lean on within our organizations. But Jared has been my teammate during my last year and a half with Chief Wright, and he's done me a great service. He's never led me astray, and I really appreciate that. And just like in this web chat, man, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys. And I think that's just about all the time we have. So unless you guys want to hear an Old Man Harry story, we do have a little bit of time. If you guys want an Old Man Harry story, I got one queued up.
I'm willing to listen to that. I will say that as far as the team, Natasha had mentioned it earlier, but I'm trying to branch out. Jared, I'll have to use you as Harry has. But I'm already reaching out to Natasha, my team, I'm looking at it as like the senior NCOs who have that talent to pull from people, because it's gonna need it. Antoine and we're gonna be working hand in hand for a lot of the stuff. So I'm looking forward to it.
No, absolutely. And I piggyback off of that. We can't do this alone. And it's very important for us to tap into our peers and leverage resources to get to where we need to be. And Jared, I thank you as well. Harry, I think I kind of took over for you. I've been, phoning Jared a lot, and he's been keeping me honest, and it's okay, right? Hey, I'm not the expert in this, but what do you think? And Nathan, I think that's something that I would encourage you to do as well. We're not going to know everything, right? But we know those people in those places that can get us to where we need to be, and we just need not to be afraid to tap into them.
Excellent.
So I just want to add something about that too. So I think that naturally in PA, we can sometimes be a little bit competitive because it is a creative career field. So it does speak to you as a creator. But we're working for the Air Force, right? So sometimes you have to look outside of your own wing, outside of your own squadron, and think, hey, are there people that I've met throughout my career who could help me with this? That's something that I've certainly learned these last few years, is not just looking at who's currently at your table, but who you've had seated at your table before, and keeping that network so that you can help them develop if Like, if you have a project that you know that they would be great for, even if you could certainly do it yourself, like reach out to those other people that you know have skills and might be able to bring something even greater than you imagined. So
that's exactly why you guys are here, to help me out. And you guys all brought something to this conversation, and I am eternally grateful to all of you. Like I said in the beginning, if anyone out there watching this has any questions that we didn't get to, if you think we missed the point, or you wanted to direct the conversation in a slightly different way, please reach out to me. harrykibbe@gmail is fine. harry.kibbe@us.af.mil works as well. And you can always find me on Facebook Messenger. I think that's how I communicate with all of you guys. Thank you guys. I really appreciate you. I love you. You're my PA fam, my friend tours. And I think we did a pretty good job. Like I said before, I'm humble, but I think this was probably the best presentation that anyone's ever put together. You gonna end it with that?
Thank you for having us on board for the best presentation anybody ever could put together.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I'm honored to be in your presence, Harry.
Okay, this is getting ridiculous. I already cut.
I didn't.